Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's lecture on data protection and so this is an online lecture, and you may also know that there is a discussion forum which has been put up for you all to answer questions which are raised during the lecture, and also raise any other comments or questions you may have on this topic. Okay, so today we'll be covering two distinct topics. One is data protection, and the second is computer misuse. We'll be talking about offenses and the penalties for both of these topics. So there are 12 questions which are given in the slides, and you are all required to give your answers to these questions in the chat room, which is at the link below. Right. So data protection. Okay. So as the name suggests, this topic is about protecting certain kinds of data from misuse, and let's have a look at what exactly is this data. Okay, so the Personal Data Protection Act, which is a very recent legislation, took effect in 2013, and this legislation essentially deals with the usage, storage, collection, and disclosure of personal data. So the first thing here is what is personal data, and I would like you all to think and give some examples of what you think is personal data. Okay, so let's look at what the Act says about personal data. So Section 2 of the Act says that data which is about an individual and where such an individual can be identified from that data is personal data. So the definition is given under Section 2. Um, so in light of this definition, now can you think of some examples of personal data? Okay, so do you have it? Are there any differences in your in your answer to question 1 and your answer to question 2? Okay, so your answer to question 2 should actually have fewer categories of personal data, right? Because the definition actually is quite specific. Okay. So who does the Act apply to? The key thing to remember here is that the Act does not actually apply to individuals. It only applies to businesses. So consider the question before you, question 3. If John collects phone numbers of his classmates, do you think his actions will be covered by the Personal Data Protection Act? Okay, so this is the coverage. Then basically the PDPA says is that business organizations, or which collect personal data, must obtain consent. They must obtain consent for the collection, use, or disclosure of personal data. So this is the obligation laid down by the Act on organizations. So consider question 4 um, and think whether a supermarket which collects your personal data, would that supermarket require your consent to collect such data? Okay. So the Act prohibits organizations from collecting data um, by deceiving or uh, misleading individuals, and it also provides. So once an individual has actually given consent that his or her data may be collected, used, or distributed by an organization, the Act actually provides him the option to withdraw that consent as well. So question 5 relates to the practice of deceiving customers. So consider whether where so consider question 5 and key in your answer in the discussion forum. Okay, so consent is not always required. Organizations may release personal data without consent in certain situations, and one of them being where the data is required uh, by law enforcement agencies. So this is an exception to the general rule. So consider question 6. Can the supermarket, in this case, release your data without your consent? Okay. Another key feature of the Personal Data Protection Act is the Do Not Call Registry. So, for example, if you do not want to receive unsolicited uh, text messages or phone calls, uh, then you may sign up with the Do Not Call Registry. You may give them your phone number, and then there's an obligation on any such organization to stop sending you such unsolicited messages or phone calls. So now consider question 7 and key in your response. Remember, these are unsolicited, which means that uh, you actually did not ask for this person to call you or message you. Okay. So the Personal Data Protection Act provides for certain remedies and penalties in case of a breach. So when can a breach happen? For instance, if you registered your number with the Do Not Call Registry and you're still receiving unsolicited messages or phone calls from a particular organization, then then you can take certain action against that organization. So one avenue you would have is to approach the Personal Data Protection Commission, which will then help you to resolve your matter through mediation. That's one option. The second option is to actually ask the Personal Data Protection Commission for an order to against that organization to stop what it's doing, and not just that, but also destroy any data, any personal data they may have already collected about you. So the penalties for breach are quite stringent, up to $1 million. But this is, of course, a penalty. It's a fine, so the money doesn't actually go to you as the complainant. Okay. And you can also ask for compensation from such organizations which breach the PDPA, but for that you will have to go to the court. So you can ask for compensation or you can seek an injunction. And I think all of you would be familiar now with the term injunction. We have come across this. This is a remedy which we have come across several times before, right? So in summary, consider this question, this scenario before you, applying the various principles of the Personal Data Protection Act. What do you think you can do? What remedies do you have? And jot down your key in your answers in the discussion forum. Okay, so moving on to the next topic, which is computer misuse. Okay, so before we talk about what is computer misuse, we first need to understand what is a computer. Now, this may seem like an obvious question to everyone. We all know what a computer is, but for the purposes of the legislation, not there's a specific definition to what a computer might be. So, of course, some of the very obvious examples could be smartphones, laptops, desktops, but there's more to it than that. So, if you look at the definition, there are a few things there are a few elements to it, and it's a pretty technical definition. So I won't go into the details of it, but you can read it for yourself. So the Act defines what a computer is, Section 2(1), and a computer must also have these elements. And the Act also talks about what is not a computer. So the CMSA is basically the Computer Misuse and Cybersecurity Act. So the following in front of you are these are features of a device which will not be deemed to be a computer. Okay, so applying the definition of a computer, do the following qualify as a computer? Please key in your responses. So on the left, you have a USB drive, and on the right, you have a regular calculator. Okay, so now the Act also basically the Computer Misuse and Cybersecurity Act makes it an offense for someone who is not authorized to access to unauthorized to secure unauthorized access to a computer. So again, we need to understand what is access, and the Act tries to define what amounts to access as, and this is in the slide before you. Okay, so unauthorized access is a crime, and the Act also defines the meaning of the word unauthorized. So that's defined under section 2.5. So access in itself is not a crime, but where the person is unauthorized, then that could amount to, so such unauthorized access could amount to a crime under the CMSA. So please remember that. So question 10, would the IT help desk staff of a company who then goes and reads email messages to employees, would that person be liable for any offense under the CMSA? So in trying to answer this question, consider what we've just discussed on the definition of computer, on the definition of unauthorized access, and in light of that, answer this question. Okay, so unauthorized, in addition to unauthorized access, another crime, another act which has been made a crime is that of unauthorized modification. So first of all, we need to understand what amounts to modification. And here we're talking about modification of data which is stored on a computer. So before you have the definition of modification. And it basically comprises of any act which results in a program being altered, or where something is added to that program, or where something impairs the normal operation of that computer. So now consider this scenario, question 11. What offense has been committed here, if any? And please state the relevant provision of the Computer Misuse and Cybersecurity Act. Now this question 12 is a variation of 11. Again, consider the provisions we've just discussed and answer this question. Okay. So because the CMSA has offenses, so lays down certain offenses. Therefore, it also talks about the punishment. And for first-time offenders, the punishment is the maximum punishment threshold is as before you, and then it becomes higher if the same person is sentenced for the same offense again under the CMSA. So, okay, right. So, um, so with that, I come to the end of our lecture today. So please key in your answers into the chat room given here. The link for which is given here. And yeah, I would also like to remind you to upload your tutorial questions on confidential information into the link provided at Olive. So please do so by as soon as possible, but latest by the end of the week. And next week, we will be discussing copyright law, protection of copyright. Thank you for your attention.